Hello, everybody. I'm Olivia and welcome to On the Line presented by Tracksmith. Today is Tuesday, May 23rd. I know it's just me at the desk, but Corey and Ashley are going to be joining me in just a moment. Tracksmith is an independent running brand inspired by a deep love of the sport after years of crafting running apparel from best-in-class materials and timeless silhouettes. They have made their first foray into footwear, which we will be talking about in a little moment. Inspired by running on soft and springy and responsive natural surfaces, you can check out the new Elliott Runner today at tracksmith.com. And as you can see my background, Live and Learn, I'm super excited to kick off this show with a special segment. We have someone calling in from Austria, so help me to welcome Anna Hall to our show. Anna is the 2022 bronze medalist in the heptathlon, and you guys, during the indoor season, she broke the American record and finished with the second best score in history with 5,004 points in the pentathlon. The queen is here, is what I've written down. So Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Anna, I know you're in Austria right now, and we talked a little bit before the show. Talk to me about the jet lag. How are you feeling? And have you had a chance to just kind of explore the area that you're in right now?
Yeah, I got in yesterday and I landed at like 9:30 a.m. And so they were like, stay up, like do not go to bed before 8 p.m. So it was a long day of lots of caffeine and trying to stay awake, but we made it. So I'm feeling a little bit better each day, and I have had a chance to explore. I'm in Gotzi's for a heptathlon I'm doing this weekend, and so I've been walking around and trying out their little bakeries and stuff. So yeah, it's been really fun to explore here.
Ooh, that's awesome. Good for you. And I feel like I have you down as like the absolute superhero. And I feel like so many high school athletes feel the same way that I do. So, pretty much, how did you get started in track and field? Just kind of walk us through the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, I started track when I was like 7, so I'm an age grouper. I did play like a lot of sports growing up, like track, basketball, volleyball, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, swimming, like everything. And yeah, so I just started doing track in the summers with like a USATF club and kept doing it. And it wasn't until high school that I decided right about when I decided I wanted to do the multi, I was like, okay, maybe I should just focus on track because I'm going to be training for 7 events. So yeah, that was kind of the journey, but it was just something I fell in love with young because I was around it. My older sisters were participating too. So yeah.
Goodness, you've done it all since the beginning. You've done everything in track and everything, any sport you can name, pretty much Anna Hall has done it. So, do you have a specific memory that you can reflect back on when you first began competing in track and field?
Um, I do have a few. I remember when I was like 7, I used to like win everything because nobody does track when they're 7. And so like there'd be like two people in the 1500, and I remember I was so fun because I was just like, oh, I just like really like winning. And then I started to get a little bit older and more people started running track and I started to lose. So I think that's kind of like, I don't know, that's like my first memory of when I was like, oh, okay, like this is like a serious sport, kind of like you have to practice to do well and so on. Because until then, it had just been, there was never anyone in the meet. So I was always just like, oh, whatever. So yeah, that's probably my first memory, I guess.
That is so awesome. So like I mentioned before, we have people that submit questions, and the very first question I feel like kind of ties everything together what you're talking about, and this is from Area Yellow, and they ask, how does one balance life work specifically in sports in a healthy way? Because I feel like you do it all. So how do you find the balance between training, doing all the things that you love even outside of track? How do you just manage it all?
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of going with the flow. I mean, I don't have one perfect formula, but for me, the biggest thing has always been just to keep sports fun because when track is fun, then I feel like I have my like social hour at the track. It's not a have to, it's a get to, and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying practice and hanging out with my teammates and making funny jokes with my coaches. And I feel like that makes it feel less like work and more like play. And then just really being on top of things outside of practice and getting ahead of time management. That was like a huge thing that college teaches. I think almost every student athlete, like you have to learn it to get through. And so just being productive with my time so that I can still have time maybe after practice to set aside just to, watch Netflix and lie down and just be a lazy college kid. So yeah.
Now, speaking of practice, I feel like if Coach Holloway was here, he would describe you as a hard worker, focused, determined, someone that loves to have fun. I remember hearing, I believe it was after the NCAA championships last year, you had a post-race interview, and you just talked about how you had to sit down with your coaches to talk about adjustments that you had to make because you were doing the double, you were doing the multis. On top of that, you finished second in the 400-meter hurdles. So what were practices like for you? I have to know.
Practice is really hard. It's very intense, but like I said, it's fun. So like the conversation and things are lighthearted, but the workouts are brutal. And yeah, I mean, going into NCAA's last year, he told me, he was like, if you want to try this double, like we need to practice this rest. And so I forget what the time between the 400 hurdles and the 800 was, but I would do like 400 hurdle workout or like a broken quarter or something really hard and then take that exact amount of rest and then run a broken 800. And he wanted to see that I could handle it. And obviously it felt a lot worse in the meet down the road, but we're just really intentional about the way that we set up workouts. And so if there's something I want to accomplish, whether it's a record or a time in a certain event, I'm open about that with my coaches. And I say, this is what I want to do. And then they kind of write the workouts to set us up for that. So yeah, that's kind of how we go about it.
That's amazing. I love how you have that open relationship with your coaches and just the ability to do that because I feel like what you have accomplished is just absolutely out of this world. I want to kind of shift now into the indoor season. We had another individual send in a question. I kind of want to know the answer to this. This is from Martin _2OP. How does it feel to be a world champion? How does that make you feel? Just kind of now that it's kind of simmered in a little bit too.
Well, I was bronze, so not quite
Yeah.
a world champ yet. But honestly, going into that meet, I had no idea if I could medal or finish that high. And I honestly surprised myself. I think it surprised some other people too. And so it did take a while for that to set in. And then in the fall, I was like, oh, okay, like people are going to expect like good things from me now. And so I kind of had to deal with that of where I was like, there's this new level of expectation of like, okay, you've been there before, you've gotten a medal before, like now the bar's being raised again. Um, so yeah, I mean, was honestly like the best moment in the world to like win that medal. And then beyond there, it's kind of just set the tone of like, okay, we're just getting started and how can we improve and move forward from here?
Yeah. Now, there's one athlete I want to mention really quickly. Her name is Jaciana Gerald Holt. And right now, she's currently a sophomore in high school in the state of Washington. She was actually at the indoor championships, and she's actually was a World U20. She competed in the World U20 championships in the heptathlon and represented Team USA last summer in Colombia. And I had a moment to talk with her earlier this year, and she just would rave about you. And she talked about how she was actually at the USA Track and Field Indoor Championship. She was competing in the high jump, and she just remembers like you doubling in the pent and then your performance in the 400 meters and she remembers taking notes and just like observing you and watching you and she's like, I want to learn from the best, so I'm just going to follow in Anna Hall's footsteps essentially. So how does that make you feel just knowing like you're inspiring the future of track and field, especially at that high school level as well?
Wow. That means a lot to me. And it's kind of weird hearing that honestly, because that used to be me. Like I remember going to USA champs in high school and I was watching the multi and taking notes with my coach and like, how can I copy these girls so I can accomplish what they're doing? So yeah, it's kind of weird that I guess it's coming full circle now, but yeah, I mean, it makes me feel really good. And I've really enjoyed how I feel like everybody has kind of embraced the like fun doubles and different things that I like to try. And I think it's kind of inspired some people to maybe try different things themselves or really test what they can do instead of just kind of following the normal straight line path, which is awesome too, but it's fun to try some different things. So it feels really good. Yeah.
All right, that kind of segues me into the next question that we also had someone submit in. This is from 7 Egypt 29. What's your favorite event outside the multi events? And I feel like you do it all. So I feel like this is a really tough question for me to even ask you too.
I think it's an easy answer. For me, it's the 400 hurdles. I always kind of joke with my coaches that that's my favorite event in track. And they're like, kind of like shut up. And I'm like, no, that really is my favorite individual event. Like I like the heptathlon more. But if you ask me what my favorite individual event is, I would pick the 400 hurdles. So yeah, that's my answer.
I love that. Next question. This is from Gracie Jack 10. Would you ever run a 1500 like competitively?
Uh, I want to say no. Because, well, my coaches would never let me, so no. But if it was up to me, I definitely could be talked into it. I honestly think it would go worse than people think. Like people are always like, "Oh, I bet you could run this," and I don't agree.
Mhm.
But yeah, if my coaches weren't looking, I probably would do
Oh,
it.
snap. Okay. All right. Another question before I let you go. This is from Madeline._Taylor. And I feel like this person watches our podcast on the line quite often because Ashley and I ask this all the time. What is your favorite pre-race song? I have to know. What's on the playlist for Anna Hall?
Um, I would say what's always there? There's always Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift are always sprinkled in there.
Okay.
Like it is like a classic. Like that's how I get loose. But recently I've been on the Ice Spice wave. So
Interesting.
very different energies. But
Interesting.
yeah.
I love that. And one more question before I let you go, Anna. You know, a lot of our high school athletes, as I said, just admire you. What kind of words of encouragement or tips would you give to those athletes that really look up to you and they're like, hey, I want to be a multi-athlete, but also maybe run the 400-meter hurdles outside of what I do? What tips would you give them?
I think my biggest tip would be like don't let anybody tell you like what you have to do or put you into a box of one thing. And if you think you can run and jump or do this and that, then you can do it. So yeah, that would be my biggest tip and just be like a sponge to the sport. Like I remember and still now I am like there's a lot of people in track that I look up to and I study what they do and it's not always about like, oh, I need to be different. I'm like, okay, what did like Jackie Joyner Kersey do in her this jump? Like, and I just try to emulate that. And I think being a student of the sport can take people a far way. So
I love that. Anna, thank you so much for your time today and best wishes to you as you compete in Austria as well. And we're just wishing you all the best as you continue this season. And we're going to be keeping our eyes out for you. So thank you.
thank you guys so much. Thanks for having me.